Hey everybody, it's Damien here from the Break It Down show doing today's intro. Today we have Ryan Curtis. He was attending at Fitchburg State University on a basketball scholarship and studied broadcast journalism and theater. On August 29, 2001, Ryan joined the US Army. 12 days later, planes flew into the Pentagon and the Twin Towers. Serving 8 years with 2 deployments, Ryan attributes his creative passion and leadership to his time and valuable training in the military. Following his service, Ryan chased his dreams of storytelling to Los Angeles to become a director. Since his plunge into the industry, Ryan has directed original content and spots for clients such as Nike, Evan Williams, Audi, Under Armour, Stephen Curry, ABC, and longtime client Oprah Winfrey. You already know what to do. Ride for the brave. Go to savethebrave.org and support these fellas. We fight together PTSD. Hey, if you want to support our show, go to the PayPal link, put a little money in it, and all the money goes straight back to the show. Check out our website, breakitdownshow.com, and you can find our merch or you can simply subscribe. Also, you can find us on YouTube. It's probably the best place to listen. And you can also watch our videos there. Okay, enough of me. Here comes Ryan Curtis.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay
This
Moore.
is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Ryan Curtis, and you're watching The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yes, indeed. Ryan Curtis is on the show with us. One of the things that's cool about the podcast, Ryan, is that over the years, you get to know people, and then the network starts to bump into each other by accident, and it connects in weird ways and everything else. So I've gotten to you through meeting Michael Broderick, and I got to know him through some dudes that have a thing called the Armour podcast, all veterans, all creators, all sharing the love and connecting the network together. And specifically, I talked to Michael about the project you guys did together, Fathers and Sons. So it's just for the audience, more than anything else, it's just this neat network that you get to build together and support one another and create something that's greater than what we were. For us, it turns out that we're all veterans, but in life in general, I think we have a lot of opportunities to do this. I want to briefly get into how you got into the Hollywood side of things. I mean, you go from being in the military to creating, and that's a pretty big chasm to jump. I mean, it's totally different. It's artistic. It's terrifying in terms of so many people come to this part of California to do this and then try their hardest and then still fail at it, right? But you've figured a lot of this stuff out. So let's talk a little bit about the path that, when you're in the military, did you know you were going to be a director and be on the creative side of things?
No, I had no idea. I think I actually have to take it back a little further than my prior military life. So when I was growing up I grew up in a small town just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And, back in the day, what we would do with my friends is we'd borrow our parents, or their friends' parents, little VCR tape recording things with a giant cassette tape that you jam into these cameras, and we'd make our own little home movies. And for us, that was fun. That was what we would do for fun. And then we'd edit them together in camera, and then we'd show it to our friends or people at school or whatever. And so it started back then, and I didn't even know what I was doing at the time. And I was actually directing, because I would hold the camera and I'd tell people where to go. And I'd set up the scenes, what's called blocking now. And I'd help shepherd the story. We had no idea what we were doing back then. Those would, if they ever came to life, it'd probably be the most embarrassing thing ever. But that's, I think, where it started. I had such a love for movies and television growing up, because that was our escape. We grew up very poor and in places that you just didn't have a lot of opportunities, especially in Hollywood, because it wasn't a real thing. And so growing up, that's where it started. That's where it seeded. And I was lucky enough to play sports growing up. So I got a scholarship to college playing basketball. And in college, I started broadcast journalism. And so I got a little bit more of some teaching and understanding of what this world could possibly be in broadcast journalism. And then 9/11 happened. And then I spent, 8 years in the Army. And in the Army, this never even crossed my mind. It was never a thing that I imagined would happen. And, as I got out of the military and I was transitioning out, I always just had gravitated towards storytelling. And that started out as an actor because that's the only entrance I knew. So I took acting classes. And then that got me on sets. And as I got onto different sets, I started to look and watch what people are doing. I was like, this is terrible. I could do it better. And then how can I do it better? And so I started volunteering and PAing, and eventually I was like, I have to move to LA if I want to be serious. And I moved to LA and came out here with about $1,200 in my pocket and knowing zero people. Yeah, so rich. And
let me jump in. I don't want to get too far down the road on this thing because, first off, when you joined the Army, was that part of the plan originally, or did you kind of end up in the Army?
I ended up in the Army. I personally joined on a whim. My dad was in and out of the National Guard. As I grew up, I didn't know my dad too well, but at one point during college, I was visiting him, and he had to do a drill weekend in the National Guard, and they were taking the ASVAB test, and he was like, "You should take that." And so I, on a whim, took the ASVAB test, and the next thing I know, I had everyone banging down my door trying to recruit me in, and they're making a lot of promises. And the Army said I could fly Apache helicopters. And I joined August 29th, 2001. So it's 12 days before September 11th. Yeah. And next thing I know, I got stop lost into another unit, so I never got to fly. But
what was your MOS then when you were in the Army?
I was a 12 Bravo. I was an engineer. And so, I did the whole engineer thing, which was cool. And we did the OIF-1, we did the invasion, OIF 1 and 2, and then I did a couple other deployments to Africa, around the world. So yeah.
No one works harder than the engineers. You guys not only love the hard work because you love to build things, but they love you.
Yeah. The best part about it is that they let us blow them up too, which is even better.
Sure.
So,
there's a great engineer patch, just for the audience. There's a great engineer patch, and it's 3 W's, but it looks like W's, and there's a line that goes through the middle of them. And we always have these funny sayings or parodies of these patches. And so, for Intel, we had a fleur-de-lis with 4 electrical bolts because the Army loves electricity on its patches. And so we were the Electric Boy Scout. And the engineers had theirs, the 3 W's in the line. We work weekends and get the shaft.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we're like twins, you and I, career twins, because my friends and I, well, especially my friend Tim and Kirk, and we're still friends to this day. They would go out with their dad and they would make Indiana Jones knockoffs. I mean, this is straight Goldbergian stuff, right? So he turned his into an entire TV franchise. But we would do that, and we had a thing called TV production in high school, which basically meant we were seniors. We got to run around the campus with cameras, and our classroom was being outside of the classroom, and it was wonderful. Loved it. And those tapes are funny. I don't think it would be too embarrassing if they came up. They'd be adorable, because we were kids trying our best and everything. I love that. And then, by the way, I got a degree in mass comm myself.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when I came back, I wanted to tell stories. I had all these incredible experiences because I went outside the wire all the time. I'm like, I got to get these things out to people so they can understand what this stuff is like. And so here I am now, telling these stories and crafting all these things and trying to figure it out. So I understand this path really well, and it's exciting to see someone do it. How did you get to directing though? I mean, yes, you saw people do it better, but you're also acting. At some point, you have to say, "I'm not an actor." Right? And that's hard to do because this town, that's what you see and know when you first get here. I mean, we only all the guys with the big houses in the hills, they're producers,
Yeah.
Who they are a lot of times. They're flash by at the end of the credits if you even stay around that long to watch. You don't know who they are, but the actors, So how did you give that up?
So I really enjoy being in front of camera, on camera still. I don't take it seriously. I don't practice. I don't do any of that stuff. So if things come up, I'll do some things. But yeah, I realized quickly that I didn't want to be an actor. And I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of rejection. It's a lot of things, control that you have to give up. You're telling someone else's story. You are at the whim of, opinion constantly. And so it took me a few years, not just acting. I would be a production assistant. I would be on set. I came up, through like a camera assistant route, and I started doing camera stuff. And it took me a while working a bunch of different jobs on set to understand that directing was where it's at. And so once I figured out what a director really does and kind of is the storyteller and is able to like really just, steer the ship of the story and make the decisions and really like tell the story that they want to tell, or I want to tell through the perspective or the, my vision itself, that's where it started to really click. And I understand that that's what I wanted to be. And so it really took a lot of work and just convincing people to be like, hey, let me direct at the same time while I started just making my own stuff.
Right.
And that's the easiest and the fastest way to become a director, is to make your own stuff. And I just constantly do it still. And now I'm lucky enough to be hired and direct full time. So I got very lucky.
How lucky?
Well, I'm here in Los Angeles, still working full time as a director, where the attrition rate of people coming in and out is super high. It's a difficult business to be in. And I think one of the things that you have to be willing to do is just work hard. And I think, I attribute that to, a lot of the background that we both share. Work hard, have a staying factor. Like it's not a quick thing. A lot of people think that there's a such thing as overnight success. It really doesn't work that way. It's constant grinding and moving forward. And now I'm directing, pretty large commercials. I do all of Oprah Winfrey's television. One of the biggest things I did recently was the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle thing. Plus I do, there's these little films and short films. I have a couple of feature films that were in development right now. That one looks like it's going to shoot the end of summer or early fall. So, to that's my dream, and I couldn't be happier to be living it, really. So pretty lucky.
Yeah. The luck factor and the overnight success thing. I wanted to talk about that for a second, because you can look at Hollywood and you can think you see an overnight success. Someone like Nick Pizzolatto, or his friend Tony Toast. Tony's been on the show a couple of times, and he talks about what those two guys had to do just to have the opportunity that they had. Now, they in terms of overnight success, maybe you could say they took that one opportunity and really destroyed it and like got in. But, Tony was a PhD English poetry guy, so he knew stories, he knew how words went together, and sort of like he just iterated to the point where when Hollywood discovered him, because he was writing Longmire, right? He got a job writing for Longmire because he grew up in that world. And so the people that were trying to invent that world, he was always 5 steps ahead, because he had lived in a trailer park, in the Great Western States near an Indian reservation. He just knew that stuff, and he could bring in nobody else could. And he had a PhD in English and knew how to write stories and everything. So he had to translate, a dialect, and because I guess you would say like poetry would be a dialect from screenwriting, and then same thing with Nick. Nick, it appears, comes out of nowhere, but there was a lot of work ahead of that opportunity, and they were able to capitalize on it because they were truly prepared. There's so much that we don't know coming into the show business aspect of things. Again, you see George Clooney, you think that's your path, but there's Michael Gaston's a guy from my hometown, and he's been an actor for 30 years now, and you maybe recognize him. But he's worked with everybody. He's worked with Al Pacino. He's worked with everybody. He's sort of he's sort of like Powers Booth, and Powers always got those jobs. Now that Powers is gone, Michael gets those jobs. He's the looming big scary lieutenant or big scary bad guy.
Oh yeah,
100 roles for that guy, but he is the brand now. Like, he is the guy and has been for a long time. You would never,
George Clooney's a perfect example of this too, because George Clooney, he came out here very young, 18, 20 years old or whatever it was. And he basically worked for 12 to 15 years to try to get cast. And it took that long for him. And I think at 33 years old, he got ER. So that was after 12 to 15 years of like grinding and trying to be cast. So it's his overnight success wasn't even an overnight success. It just is a constant preparing, working, grinding, and then being, what is that? Luck is preparing. Being prepared meets, something. What's that saying? I don't know, but it's like preparation meets. Yeah, opportunity, exactly. So, I think that's the best thing, everyone can learn from is trying to break this business for anyone. And it's the same thing for me. It's like, I've been here 10 years now and just grinding. And just recently, I would say, the momentum is starting to pick up.
I want to talk about the Harry and Meghan thing in a minute, but I want to stay on this topic of like Michael Gaston, who has this incredible career, has worked and makes his money, lives in New York. I mean, he's done it. He's figured it out. He's an actor. And like, whenever I have actors on the show, you have to qualify. Like, is this person an actor? Because you can say it's like being a chef. Like, yes, I'm a chef. Well, anybody can be a chef. Like, I make a really, I'm a chef. Call me Chef Pete. But he really is an actor of course. Like, when you go to book something, you say, and in the industry, of course, he's known. You're like, yeah, of course, yeah, we know Michael's work. Of course, he'd be great in this role of being this intimidating person, right? He can literally stand there with no role, with no line. And he has lines in it. I don't want to undermine what he does, but he's already doing it by just simply standing there. So you have these careers that you wouldn't picture because you picture George Clooney. But in reality, Michael Gaston is as successful as you can be. I mean, he's going to have a lifelong career as an actor. But you don't pick that going in. You pick the bigger thing. And then it finds out, like, for someone like you, you're like, yeah, acting's great and I enjoy it. So that means I'll do it. But what I really love is directing. And then the kind of directing you get to do too. Like, you may, we had Krista Vernoff on the show and she's like, I love comedy. I love singing and dancing, but I get paid to write drama. That's what I get paid to do because turns out that's what I'm great at. It's not my favorite thing in the world. That she doesn't like it. She loves it, but what she'd rather do is, be in a rock band and, be funny and all these other things, but she gets paid to write edgy, hard stuff.
Yeah, man, it's pretty crazy. Like, there's, through the last 10 years, you find things that pay you and that you do very well at, and you allow that to help pay and fund your passion projects to help build, specifically as a director, even actors and other things. It's just like, I might be, like I do a lot of the Oprah stuff, the Oprah Winfrey television. It is fantastic. She's been amazing to me and all of that stuff. And I love doing it, but I wouldn't say that that's my passion. My passion is more, traditional narrative storytelling. But a lot of what working with her does for me is allows me to, work on the other projects when that stuff's not going on, or allows me to fund short films or, continually practice my craft, that way. And so there's in Los Angeles in general, most people have to do that. That's the being a waiter or a bartender for actors. They have to do that until they've finally broke through to like be, your Michael's role, where he's constantly working as an actor. So.
Yeah. And then the other thing, and you're talking about it here too, is what do you get paid to do? Again, Mark Pellington's another guy that's been on the show a bunch of times. And Mark is known for Arlington Road, probably. That's the movie everybody really talks about. He's had some incredible projects, but that's the one that really sticks in people's minds because it was such a great thriller. But what he gets paid to do and what he did on his way up was to make music videos. And so there's two guys basically he went to for videos, depending on if you were a black performer or a white performer. And one was my friend Brian, who I worked at Tower Records with, and who knew, like 30 years later, he's this super famous video director and does whatever he wants now because he was so good at it. And Mark is the other version of that, like, Pearl Jam, U2. He's worked with all these bands making videos, and it's just incredible. But he's almost invisible because of that work. And what he's known for is he gets to take on and call his own shots. But he has a nice house in Hollywood, on a corner lot that is gorgeous. And he didn't pay for that with, his passion projects. He paid for that with the hard work of the music videos.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. I mean, these, you take the jobs, and the best thing about like those music videos, he's working on his craft and honing his craft for the stuff that he's really passionate about. And so there's nothing wrong with that. And that is really amazing to be able to do that.
Yeah. And so part of what you have to do as you come up is you have to build this audience, people that know your work and like, oh, we should get Ryan for this. He's perfect for it. Oprah calls you and says, hey, anything in this venue I want you to take on and do for me. Right. So you're like, okay, cool. Now I've got the hard part of having, this almost like a patron, someone who's like, I'm going to make sure that you're doing things. And then whatever you do in your spare time is up to you. And so now it's up to you to find those things that really, drive you crazy, that make you excited about the work. So how do you decide what to put you only get so much time. How do you decide what you want to put your time and effort into? Because there's like, you're creative like I am. I want to do 100 things, but I only get to do like 2.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's the hard thing too, right? And so at this point in my career, it's, I'm looking to do things that are going to advance my career and kind of bring me up to the next level. And that could be, anything from like really great teams that you're working with and people that you're working with to, finding and shooting something that's an actual asset that you can pitch or sell. And so, right now, like that is my focus. My focus is just really building the team and the quality of the people around me so that we can put things together and go out and pitch and then make something that's really great. And that gets a little bit of attention and that allows us to do things like this, like meet you and chat on a podcast, and this is because of a really great team that we worked with, Michael Broderick and another handful of really very talented veterans. And here we are now. Yeah.
Tim's been on the show too. And Tim he played the role in the
Tim was so good too. Both Tim and Michael, they just came in and just absolutely just delivered on every single take and, allowed us to play with the performances and we only had a short amount of time to film. So like that, they were just so fantastic to work with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. And everybody should check out Tim's episode too. And such wonderful people. I mean, I just think I've had Michael's wife on the show because she did the baking show, the American baking show.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, the Brodericks, Tim, man, I just can't say enough positive things about him. It's great to be in this veteran creative community and we can help one another out. I don't know who's ahead of you as like in terms of a mentor to help guide you on these things, but surely you're also looking back and trying to help others get up and over the wall, or at least say, like, when folks ask me about the podcast side, I just point out the dragons and I say, you're focused on what rock to step on. And I'm telling you, there's a dragon right here that if you can't kill this dragon, it doesn't matter what path you get, this dragon is in front of you and you have to be prepared for it. So how do you guide the next person coming up in terms of what's next? But then how do you also make sure that you are making the best choices? I mean, not that you're doing bad now. I mean, working for Oprah, doing your own projects is pretty sweet, but you surely are still trying to get up the mountain.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the thing with this business in general is like, no matter how much you do, there's always that carrot that's in front of you that you're trying to, grab. And so I think that with our community in general, the veteran community in general, it's, rising tides rise all ships. And so the more successful we all are, the more successful it helps the rest of us and the ones underneath us. And so, there's quite a strong community here in Los Angeles of veterans that, are really happy for one another and help one another, try to succeed. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can do. And that I'm trying to do is just continually work with very talented people and show that, the veterans in general are not just military storytellers. They're storytellers, that can encompass all, corners of life and the world. And so that's a really big thing. And then, just really trying to instill in the guys and the women underneath, that are falling behind me. It's just like, you got to put the work in and you've got to constantly be, working and honing your craft and making things because that's how success happens.
So when Michael brings you this project, let's go back to Oprah. So working with Oprah, how is that? How is she as a boss? Is she, hands-on? I mean, giving you this opportunity to do this Meghan and Harry thing is a pretty big deal. I mean, if you didn't know, right? And then has that led to more phone calls? Because I watched it. You did a great job. I mean, it was, you were like, you're supposed to be invisible, but the story was there.
Totally, and it's interesting with the Oprah stuff is like it's set up a little differently. They have their producers and their creative producers on their team, and they're formulating a lot of the story elements. And then where I come in is like, I help with the actual execution of it. And so that's kind of like how I come in. And I've been lucky enough to be with her for like 8 or 10 years at this point, and she's been fantastic to me. She's a couple layers above me where I'm mostly dealing with, the executive producers on her team. And they've been really, truly amazing. But I've been working with them so long at this point, it's plug and play. They're like, hey, we're doing this. Here we go, get ready. And we go do that. And so I actually just got back from Hawaii. We shot about a few episodes of television in Hawaii with her. And I think we have a couple more coming up, but, she's been fantastic and has treated us very well. Yeah.
How in the world do you get this gig? I mean, do you apply for it? Does someone reach out? How does this opportunity drop in your lap?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, a luck thing for sure. When I got out here to Los Angeles back in the day, I was volunteering on Craigslist to like work on sets and things, and I had met someone on set somewhere that was looking for an assistant to a director of photography at the time. And so I went and interviewed with this guy to be his assistant, basically. And he would shoot for OWN and Oprah on occasion. And so they came out and they would hire me. And that team liked me when we started to shoot for them. So they would hire me more often just to come back and assist and whatever. And at that point in time, it was like when the 5Ds, Canon 5D little cameras started coming out, and I'd saved and pinched every penny that I owned to buy one. And then on one of the times we got on set, I just broke it out and started shooting things and shot some B-roll and beauty things. And then I just handed it over to the producers. And I was like, here, see if you can use this. And the next time they were like, hey, can you do that again? That was awesome. Did it one more time for free, basically. And then from then on out, I was hired. And I just got everything that they would do. They just hired me to do the same thing. And I started to grow that way. And it was just, a lot of luck and opportunity and just being ready.
And this didn't have anything to do with being a veteran. Like, it wasn't because, and you're a veteran, so we'll give you the shot. This was because you had developed the professional capacity to do this well, and they recognized it. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think that the veteran thing ever hurts. It's a good story, for people to say, but there's definitely, they're not just going to hire you because you're a vet. And that's always the case. You have to be good at what you do. And there's a lot of work and skill that needs to be developed to become that. And so, yeah, I was lucky. I had been practicing and being ready, and then had an opportunity, and I jumped on it. Some of what we all do in this creative world, whether you're a record producer or anything, is we spend our own time and money to make things, even small scale things, just to to teach ourselves, but to create, and also to be a bit of a business card, a calling card. And that's a lot of what Michael did with this fathers and son thing, where you have these veterans coming together, making a veteran project, for an exploding franchise. Jack Carr's going to be on the show next week, I think. So with his new book, but here's an opportunity to say, hey, Jack, check this out. By the way, everybody else in the whole wide world, check this out. So how often and for how long are you going to be able to do this? Are you making your own smaller projects still, or do you have less and less time for that as you get more and more projects that are the goal here is paid? So yeah, I mean, you have to be paid. You have to pay your bills, and you have to do all that stuff. But like ultimately, I love these things. Like that project that Michael hit me up early on, and he's like, I got an idea, and I kind of have a connection to Jack, and I think he'd let us, use the characters. And then we started brainstorming, and he had a really great idea, the premise of the story with the rifle. And so we got to work and wanted to recruit, a writer to do it. And so we got Vernon on board, and Vernon just delivered a really fantastic script. And so, we
we really just put our heads together and our resources together and was like, here we go, let's make this thing happen. And my favorite thing about the project is Michael texted me yesterday from the set of Terminal List and said, we did it. And so he got cast on Terminal List, and that was the whole reason, was just like, hey, showcase what he could do and with this project. And that's paid itself off in spades. And that's exactly what we want. We want to showcase what the team can do and be like, hey, so that they can be hired in other things down the road. And so for that reason, I will never stop doing these things, and so, and it's one of my favorite things to be able to help people like this. And then it helps myself in a selfish way too. So I love doing this stuff, and we had such a good time.
Yeah. And you can tell that you guys, well, first off, I mean, it's genuine. I mean, as a veteran, as a guy that's done a lot of crazy stuff in my military career, there's just no denying that Tim is legitimate, and Michael is just, these guys are also professional pro actors, so it's no problem to pull off the reality of this, but also just the look of it, man. Like you just, for those who didn't watch the Michael Broderick episode, and I'll put the link in there, you've got Michael and Tim acting as the main characters. I don't remember the lady's name, but these guys are actual veterans, but they're also professional actors too. And then the direction is just so great. He did such a great job, and you made them look like great pool players. And Michael's like, we made some shots and everything, but also the writing. And the writing, he brings in, I can't remember the guy's name right now either. You just said his name a second ago, but
Vernon. Vernon.
Yes. And so you have Vernon, all these people that come together to make this thing a reality, and it sings, it looks great. If I'm Jack Carr, I'm like, man, I'm inspiring my brothers and sisters to create things. Of course, I'm going to get behind this. Oh, and by the way, Chris Pratt's about to make this movie, like, let's get these guys all dialed in. It's such a great story of collaboration. And it just, again, it's such a great job on the whole thing. I mean, it's a short little film, and I don't know if you guys are going to enter it in any kind of festivals or anything, but just kudos to you guys for putting this together and believing in yourselves and believing in the ability to get in front of this project.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. What was the question again?
I was just saying kudos to you guys for putting this project together and really making it happen. I mean, it's incredible to be able to think that everybody puts aside their personal interest in getting paid, and then they say, let's go turn this into an opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, and it worked. And I really have to give credit to all those guys for just, Tim and Michael and Tyne and Vernon, everybody for volunteering their time there. And then, but specifically Michael, who really was the driving force behind this, and he had a really great idea and just really made it happen. And so, and it worked out for him, which is the greatest thing ever. He's on set of Terminal List, because of it. And so, I'm super, super excited, and I will 100% do that 10 more times with those guys and everyone else. So, it's very cool. What about you, man? Like, what's your storytelling situation? How did this happen from the military to this? I'm sorry, I'm not fully,
Yes, I know, it's fine.
Read in on your background.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. I've got an airplane flying overhead. I'm just below the John Wayne Airport, so I was trying to mute that out, but forget it. Who cares? First off, everybody looking on the screen, there's the Fathers and Sons, the link for the YouTube. You can watch on Vimeo. Just type in Fathers and Sons or Michael Broderick and Fathers, whatever. You're going to find it. And you can also go to Jack Carr's website, because Jack Carr backed the whole thing up by putting it on his thing. So, and then also in general, if you're watching, especially on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube, especially watch on YouTube, subscribe, hit the reminders so you see all these things that I'm creating and putting out. And also, if you want to help support what I do, there's a PayPal link at breakitdownshow.com. Just match that. It's sort of like my own Patreon, except for I don't have to partner with Patreon. They take a bigger bite, and then PayPal just takes a transaction fee. So if you want to help support the show, you can put a monthly figure in there, which would be great to have $5, $10, $15, $20. If you take me out to lunch, just do something like that. Or if you're like, hey, Pete, take this $1,000 and go, which someone has done more than once. That helps. And I put all that money back into the show. You'll see more ads. You'll see more variety produced. That's where that money goes. It goes to feed the show and make things better. Back to answering your question. So I was a spy, and I would go outside the wire every day and talk to locals. And a lot of what I do now is the same thing, right? Like, I find these incredible people. I build a network of people who pump me guests, and I can go out and reach out now. And my show has built up this strength where I can, Jack's got a new book out. I can reach out to Jack's publicist, and he apologizes to me and says, "Oh shoot, I meant to send you this. I don't know how I missed you." You become known in the world because of what we do, and it was part of my storytelling thing. And I continue to evolve it. I'm trying to actually do some things like Michael and you guys did. Make some of these shorts, because there's so many stories that happen that are reality based. You can put them in another universe and really create some rich texture. Fans want more; they don't want less. And so while Jack writes, or I'm working with some other authors that do things, Wilson and Andrews are another group of guys that I've talked to about this. But if you can create shorter stories, it's just more for everybody. The fans get more, the authors have more quality content, and for a fairly small investment, you can do something like a podcast, or you can create these short videos to say, "Hey, look, producer, there's stories here, there's richness, there's texture." And so that's sort of where the show is going, in addition to the interview part that I'm doing now still, but I want to do more original content and develop the capacity. But I've reached the point where, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, my plate is full, right? And I can't take on any more work. So I have to shove some things off of the plate. So we used to do 5 episodes a week, and I'm trying to do less of that so that I have more time to work on these other projects, because they're desperate for my attention. And since I don't have a lot of, a big backer financially, time is my main thing. Weapon I can use to outproduce people. So that's where I'm at, and that's what I'm doing. But I wanted to tell these stories, and I know it so well. I got to see so many different units, Ryan, like as they rotated through combat zones, and I got to learn like institutionally how we did these things, and then day to day go out and talk to the locals and just see all that texture and the matrix, how everybody fits together. And I love illustrating that for people. People don't know. Even people in the military, this, like, people that literally never leave the camp. They're desperate to do it, and they think it's a crazy world out there. But most patrols, literally nothing happens. You just go out and are bored to tears, So that's my long answer to your question.
That's very cool. I mean, it is cool because, most of the military is very segmented. You are with your own group. And so I was lucky enough to be a detachment where I'd be farmed out to all these different units myself. And so I got to see a lot of different fun things and totally understand where you're coming from there. It's pretty cool.
This is a funny engineer story, right? And this is what makes all of combat so great, because engineers can do anything. They can build stuff, they can blow stuff up. They can blow stuff up and then rebuild it. All of these things. Like, hey, we need a bridge across this river right here. No problem. We got that on a truck back here. Boom, boom, bridge. Couple hours. So we had this new unit rolled into Afghanistan, and it's rugged where we're at, really rugged. And the unit planned on, like, we're going to push south. We're going to ensnare and encircle the Taliban and destroy the Taliban in this region, and we will win. And that's just not how these fights work. And so we tried to say, hey, listen, this is not going to happen. There's a couple problems with the plan. One, it's winter. They're not going to be out there standing in a field waiting. Like, there's no bivouac site. Bivouac's a camp. But they were determined they were going to do this. And like the first time they brought it out in their vehicles, the vehicles slipped off of the non-existent road, and they got stuck. And then people had to go to the bathroom, and they're like, you know what? We got to come back. So and then the best thing, it's wintertime, and it's super mountainous where we are. And this giant hunk of mountain blocks the main pass. And we report this in, because I'm an intel guy, right? We report this in, and especially, and we know, go to the engineer first, like, hey, there's going to be this problem. This giant piece of the mountain has fallen in the past, and this guy doesn't know us. So we have like, we work together. They don't know who we are. They don't care. And they're like, yeah, whatever. We're like, you don't get it. This thing is enormous. The locals can't stop talking about it. And you're not going to be able to use this pass anytime soon. And then, of course, the engineer's like, there's no pass that I can unblock. There's no way of it. We keep finding out more about this. So we want to make sure that they're right. And ultimately, he has to stand in front of the commander and say, we've looked at this thing every way. There's no way to move this thing. There's no way to blow it up. If we try to blow it up, we'll bring more of the mountain down on top of it. If we try to chisel it away, it'll take us the entire deployment to do it. Sir, we're going to have to find another way around this mountain. And it's these are the things, Ryan, that like you can inject into like a story that has nothing to do with actual combat, but everything to do with how hard it is to do these things,
Right. And everything in these countries, when you're completely self-sustaining, everything becomes 10 times more difficult. You can't just go down to the local store and pick up something or, any of these things. So yeah, it's those small details and the little nuances that, you as a veteran, myself as a veteran can inject into stories really kind of elevates it. And that's what makes it special on our end.
What kind of stories do you write at all? Are you trying to do screenwriting or do you have someone you partner with?
I do. Well, I don't write. What I've realized early is I actually thought I wanted to write first when I first moved here. And so I have written throughout the years and continue to write certain things. And I actually I freelance as a creative director as well for a lot of the commercials that I direct. I'll be brought in early on from like the agencies, and then I'll conceptualize the entire marketing campaign, and that involves like all of the writing process and doing all that stuff. And as far as narrative stories, yes, I write, but what I've realized quickly is that there are much more talented writers out there than myself. And so what I try to do is partner with a true writer, and then they'll make my stuff better, and then I'll make their stuff hopefully a little bit better, and then we were able to move forward with that. And so I have a couple scripts that I co-wrote that we've sold, and then I have one that I co-wrote with a Marine Corps veteran who was intelligence and as well, and she's just the most talented writer I've ever worked with. And we are going to shoot that script in the fall. We have a couple producers on board and financiers, so we're very excited about that.
That's cool. Yeah, more projects is better. And do you have a desire to tell more veteran-based stories, or are you trying to create things that are specifically not that, to get away from that sort of, just being pigeonholed?
I think that there's a mix for myself. I like to I want to tell military and veteran-based stories in a specific way. But what I've learned in pitching and getting out there is that people are not closed off to it, but like there is a bit of an oversaturation in certain ways that it has to be very different. The veteran and military stories have to be so different that we haven't really seen it again, or there's just a new spin on it. And so I want to do those, but ultimately what I want to do is just tell all stories, and that can be veteran stories, or it can be stories about, where I grew up, in Boston, or a place that I traveled or whatever. Just take the pieces like you talked about yourself, and just like those little details and nuances, and inject them into the storytelling and try to make it, relatable to all audiences.
I'm having some on the fly technical difficulties here. I'm not sure how my camera system shut down, but everybody watching, sorry about that. Yeah, the mix of veteran stories. Gosh, I always want more reality, and we're so much better at reality now than we were, say, 70 years ago. But even like Saving Private Ryan, there's so much reality. Like it's just one linear piece of a story. There's 100 other stories in there that you would just be jaw dropping, like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And we do a great job of World War II, because if you were to watch all the World War II movies, you'd be in the theater for months, just watching these things. So there's always more of that to add in to give people an idea of like just what it's like. Especially, what was that one movie about the Gulf War? It was just so boring. Like literally nothing happened. Jarhead. Yeah.
Well, that was like kind of the point.
Right.
Is like, they get over there, and then like all they want to do is like execute with the skills and the training that they've done, and then nothing happens. So, yeah, crazy. I think that I think there's still a major oversaturation of World War II stories. They definitely those stories deserve to be told, and it's because it's classic good versus evil. Right. You have like the Americans coming in to save the day against the evil Nazis. And so that's really great storytelling.
Right.
And no one can really disagree with like the war itself. But now some of these wars, there's a lot of like, gray areas, and we're in a war that we probably shouldn't have been in as long as we have. It's 20 years at this point coming up in September. And so it's pretty crazy. So, but I do think that we're going to have a wave of pretty amazing stories to be told, especially about early on in this war. it's going to start to happen as guys like us are going to be able to start to tell those stories or have the ability and capability to tell the stories.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't want to take all of your day. I know you're super busy. Do you have any questions for me, or do you have anything else you want to bring up? Do you want to talk about Oscar Mike? What else should we talk about? And by the way, everybody should go check out Ryan's website. There it is in the bottom of the screen.
Appreciate it. Yeah, no, I mean, Oscar Mike was another show that, I was able to host and direct and produce a couple of years ago. It was one of the most fun I've ever had in the business. Just be able to, we went around to different veterans and showcased what they're doing in their lives today. And we like to pick, a little bit more high octane, jobs and everything from, tactical training to NASCAR drivers to, those things. And so it was just a really cool, fun experience. I'd love to be able to do it again. Unfortunately, the network that we did it for closed down right after we launched the show. So I don't know if that's going to happen again, but
right.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're just continuing to make shows and try to pitch new stuff and ideas. And I'd love to do something similar to that in the future. So
Michael Broderick picked Jack Carr and ultimately Indivisible as a bunch of folks he wanted to work for. Who do you want to work for? Like, if you were going to make something right now, you're like, I would love to target these guys and work with them. I love what they do. Not that Oprah's not already incredible.
Yeah, no, totally. There are so many truly amazing people that I would love to work with. This movie that I'm doing right now, it's called Oxymorons. Oxy as in the pill. It's a pharmaceutical heist movie based in Boston. Oh, nice. And so I think we're targeting right now is like Pearl Street, which is Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And so like those guys, I'd love to work with those guys, in the future. But on the military side, there's a handful of books or productions that are happening, the Jack Ryan series, because I'll just be different than Michael, because the Terminalist guys would be amazing to work with.
Yeah, of course.
I would love to do that. But, like the Jack Ryan series on Amazon, I'd love to work with those guys. Dude, there's so many talented people out there that I'd love to get a chance to work with. If you want to learn about Ryan's work, if you want to work with Ryan or see what's up with him, RyanCurtis.us is a good place. Obviously, his IMDb page is another good spot. But I mean, this is how you put folks to work. If you're a veteran and you're trying to figure out what to do to get into this industry, reach out to Ryan, reach out to me, reach out to VME. If you don't know what that is, we'll put the link in the show notes and you can look it up. That's a great way to get into a network of people who are where you are and ahead, but also trying to pull you up and show you the ropes and get you the jobs and help guide you to that process. So if you're on the veteran side, VME. Do you want to talk about VME at all? Sure. I mean, VME is a really great resource here in Los Angeles, and that's Los Angeles. And I think we have New York and a couple other places around the country that they do meetups and stuff. But it's a really great resource and networking and educational platform and group that allows veterans to, help one another get into the movie business and also educate one another with different classes and courses and things like that to kind of really learn how to break it into the entertainment industry. And that could be, filmmaking or games or podcasts or any of that stuff. And so you'll find a resource there. And, it's one of the places here in Los Angeles that I've gravitated to work with. And some of my best friends here in LA have come out of that group. And so it's really cool. Yeah, check it out, VME. I think VME.org, I think what it is. And again, that'll be in the show notes. Take a look at it. All right, so I'm going to wrap this thing up, everybody. This is Ryan Curtis. Definitely check out, support his work, whether you're watching an Oprah thing or maybe watching a future episode of Jack Carr or Jack Ryan's universe of characters.